worked the night shift? Alone? Ever felt someone watching you, but no one was there? They say nothing good happens after 3 a.m. But for these late shift workers, 3 a.m. isn't just late, it's deadly. A whisper. Do you hear it? These are the darkest, most chilling encounters from people who survived, and some who never should have.
Jessie had worked the night shift at a small roadside diner for years. She was used to the quiet, the odd customers, and the long stretches of nothingness. But that night, the silence felt different. Then the bell above the door jingled. She looks up. The door hasn't moved. No one is there. She frowns. Maybe the wind? She walks toward the entrance, peering outside into the empty parking lot. Not a single car in sight. But as she turns back toward the counter, she hears it. A faint whispering voice coming from the kitchen.
Help me. It's so cold.
Jessie freezes. She swallows, trying to rationalize it. Maybe the cook left the freezer open? She walked cautiously toward the kitchen. The only sound is the soft hum of the refrigerator. As she steps inside, the air feels ice cold. The overhead light flickers. She calls out.
Dave, you in here?
No response. She glances at the freezer door. It's slightly ajar. A chill runs down her spine. She hesitates, then pushes it open slowly. Inside, a man, pale, shivering, lips blue, eyes wide, staring directly at her. His mouth moves, but no sound comes out. She takes a step back, heart hammering.
Sir, are you okay?
The figure tilts his head. Then the cook enters from the back door, carrying a garbage bag. Jessie, what are you doing? He asks. She spins around to him, frantic. There's a man in there. She turns back to the freezer, but it's empty. The cook frowns, stepping forward. He looks inside. Nothing. No footprints. Nothing. Jessie knew what she saw wasn't normal. Jessie quit 2 weeks later, but the new waitress, she tells the same story. Every night at 3 a.m., she hears knocking from inside the freezer.
Help me.
Hospitals at night are eerie places, too quiet, too empty. But for Nurse Rachel, that wasn't the worst part. A patient coded on the ICU floor earlier that night. Rachel was writing notes at her station. The beeping of heart monitors echoes down the hall. 3:12 a.m. She stretches, glancing at the screen. Her eyes widen slightly. Room 402. The monitor is active. The patient is moving. But there's a problem. The patient in 402 died 2 hours ago. She blinks, staring at the screen. Then, the room's call light flickers on. She hesitates, then slowly gets up, heart pounding, walking toward the room. Rachel stepped into the dimly lit room. The bed is empty, sheets neatly tucked. The air is ice cold.
Hello?
Silence. Then, a soft rustling. She spins around her own reflection in the dark window, stares back at her. Only, her reflection isn't moving. A soft, shuddering breath behind her. Rachel bolts out of the room, slamming the door shut. The beeping stops. The call light goes dark. When she checked the surveillance footage later, there was a shadow standing inside the room when she walked in, but it never left. During the day, a school is full of life. Bright hallways, laughter, and noise. But at night, when the lights go out and the hallways are empty, schools don't feel the same. A place meant for kids should never be that quiet. It feels wrong, like something's waiting in the dark. Dennis knew this feeling all too well. He had been the overnight security guard at West Ridge High for 3 years. It was easy money, boring even. But some nights the school didn't feel empty. Dennis leaned back in his chair, sipping coffee, watching the monitors. Usual stuff, empty classrooms, dark hallways, the faint hum of the vending machines. Then he heard it. Knock, knock, knock. He glanced at the monitors. No one was outside. Knock, knock, knock. His stomach dropped. It was coming from inside the school, but he was alone. The front doors were still locked. He hesitated, then stood up, gripping his flashlight. Slowly, he walked to the door, placing his hand on the knob. His breath felt thick in his throat. He swung the door open. Nothing. An empty hallway. The dim, flickering overhead lights buzzed. But as he stepped out, he felt it. The air was colder, wrong, like something had just been standing there. Then down the hall, a classroom door slowly creaked open. Dennis knew this school, knew these halls, and he knew that door should have been locked. He raised his flashlight, stepping inside. The classroom was completely empty, but there was one desk, just one, placed in the center of the room. Then he noticed something else. There was a piece of paper on the desk, handwritten in smudged pencil. "Don't sit down." His heart hammered. A gust of cold air rushed past him. The classroom door slammed shut behind him. Dennis whirled around, gripping the handle. Locked. It was locked. Then he heard it. A faint, rasping breath, directly behind him. He turned slowly. The desk was no longer empty. A shadowy figure sat in the chair. Dennis stumbled backward, his mouth dry. The figure was wrong. Its head twitched. Its body convulsed in jerky, unnatural movements. Like a glitching video, it raised its head and smiled. The grin was too wide, too many teeth. A grin that wasn't human. "You shouldn't be here." The lights exploded above him. The room plunged into darkness. Dennis bolted from the room, his breath ragged. He sprinted down the hallway, his flashlight flickering. The air felt wrong. The school wasn't empty anymore. Then ahead of him, a figure stepped into the hallway, just standing there, motionless. Not a student, not human. He stopped dead, his hands shaking. The figure was tall, too tall. Its neck tilted at an unnatural angle. Its arms were too long. Then it twitched forward. One step, then another. Dennis didn't wait. He turned and ran. He ran toward the stairwell, shoving the door open, and froze. Down the stairs, in the darkness, there were faces staring up at him. Dozens. Eyes black, mouth stretched into wide, unnatural grins. Then, they started crawling up. Dennis had nowhere to go. He turned, bolting back toward the lobby. The hallway lights flickered violently. His own footsteps sounded distorted, echoing too many times like there were others running with him. Then, over the school's PA system, a voice. "We see you." The speakers buzzed, and then came the laughing. Low, distorted. Like a room full of people, laughing just out of sight. Dennis stumbled into the security office, locking the door behind him. His hands trembled as he grabbed his radio. "This is Dennis. Something's in the building. I need..." The radio cut to static. Then, through the speaker, the sound of breathing. right next to his ear. He turned to the security monitor. A figure was standing just outside his office door, staring at the camera. The power cut out. The screen flickered off. A long silence. Dennis sat in the dark, his hands still shaking. He could still hear it, the whispering, just outside the door. The slow tap, 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 against the glass. Then, the handle turned. He didn't wait. Didn't even grab his things. He yanked the back door open, ran to his car, and never looked back. He quit that same night, no explanation, no notice. Just gone. The school tried to hire another night guard. They didn't last a week. Their final log entry, scribbled, barely legible, left on the desk. They're not ghosts, they're worse.
What do you think about these horror night shift encounters? Have you ever experienced something eerie on the job? Share your thoughts and any horror stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment to keep the horror alive. More chilling stories are coming soon. Stay tuned.